Hi there, this is Sanjay and I welcome you all to this English learning YouTube channel, English Every Day. In today's video, we are going to practice some tricky words, some tricky vocabulary, and that will be in Indian and American accent. So this video is going to be really very helpful for those people who are struggling with understanding Indian accent. As I have uploaded already many videos about Indian accent for the reading practices and many other practices are there. But in this video, we are going to practice some vocabulary, some words, and those words would be really very helpful if you communicate with the Indian people on a daily basis. So without getting late, let's get into the video and we start with the tricky vocabulary. Alright, so let's begin with the tricky vocabulary for Indian accent and American accent. So we have some vocabulary and the first word we are going to practice here is adventure. You can see on the screen, adventure. In Indian accent we say adventure, but actually it is adventure. Now let's go for the next word is applause, but when we say the Indian accent we say applause, applause. When we go for the next word we have balloon. In Indian people they say balloon. It's really very different. Now the next word we have is beautiful, but Indian people they say beautiful. You can see my jawline. Beautiful. The next word we have is blossom. But Indian people they say blossom. The next word we have is brilliant. Indian people say brilliant. The next word we have is challenge. American people. Indian people say challenge. The next word we have is chocolate. Indian people say chocolate. The next word we have is dangerous. Indian people would say dangerous. The next word we have is delightful. Indian people would say delightful. You can see the difference. The next word is excitement. Indian people would say excitement. The next word we have is frightening. Many Indian people they say frightening. The next word we have is gigantic. Indian people would say gigantic. The next word we have is happiness. Indian people would say happiness. The next word we have is invisible. Now Indian people would say invisible. The next word we have is jubilant. Indian people would say jubilant. So this is the difference you can see. The next word we have is knowledge. The Indian people would say knowledge. The next word we have is lightning. Indian people would say lightning. The next word we have is mysterious. Indian people would say mysterious. The next word we have is opportunity. Indian people would say opportunity. The next word we have is pleasant. Indian people would say pleasant. The next word we have is quicksand. Indian people would say quicksand. The next word we have is rainbow, and Indian people would say rainbow. It's a different. Now the next word we have is suspicious. Indian people would say suspicious. The next word we have is universe. Indian people would say universe. They give the stress over the last word. Universe. The next word we have is whisper. Indian people would say whisper. The next word we have is xylophone. xylophone, xylophone. Indian people would say xylophone, xylophone, xylophone. So it's somewhat different. The next word we have is yellow, yellow. Indian people would say yellow, yellow, or many people would say yellow, yellow. The last word we have is javelin, javelin. Indian people would say javelin, 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 javelin. All right, so these are the vocabulary, and I hope these words would help you become more familiar with the Indian accent. If you have any question, any query, or anything, you can write down below the comment option. I would definitely reply you, and I'm very much thankful for your love and your support because you always comment for the videos I prepare for you guys. So thank you so much for giving your time and have a happy time.